Respiration. Refer to Activity 5.4 and 5.5. We have discussed nutrition in organisms in the last section. The food material taken in during process of nutrition is used in cells to provide energy for various life processes. Diverse organisms do this in different ways. Some use oxygen to break down glucose completely into carbon dioxide and water. Some use other pathways that do not involve oxygen. Refer to figure 5.8. In all cases, the first step is to break down of glucose, a 6 carbon molecule, into a 3 carbon molecule called pyruvate. This process takes place in the cytoplasm. Further, the pyruvate may be converted into ethanol and carbon dioxide. This process takes place in yeast during fermentation. Since this process takes place in the absence of air, oxygen, it is called anaerobic respiration. Breakdown of pyruvate using oxygen takes place in the mitochondria. This process breaks up the 3 carbon pyruvate molecule to give 3 molecules of carbon dioxide. The other product is water. Since this process takes place in the presence of air, oxygen, it's called aerobic respiration. The release of energy in this process, the release of energy in this aerobic process is a lot greater than in the anaerobic process. Sometimes, when there is a lack of oxygen in our muscle cells, another pathway for the breakdown of pyruvate is taken. Here, the pyruvate is converted into lactic acid, which is also a 3 carbon molecule. This built up of lactic acid in our muscles during sudden activity causes cramps. Here is the figure 5.8. It shows breakdown of glucose by various pathways. First, glucose, a 6 carbon molecule, is broken down into pyruvate, a 3 carbon molecule, and it also gives some energy. This process takes place in cytoplasm. Then this pyruvate can be broken down by 3 pathways. In the absence of oxygen in yeast, it forms ethanol, carbon dioxide, and gives energy. In the absence of oxygen in our muscle cells, it forms lactic acid and gives energy. Lactic acid is a 3 carbon molecule. The pyruvate is broken down in presence of oxygen in our mitochondria and forms carbon dioxide plus water plus energy and gives energy. This last process is called aerobic respiration. The energy released during cellular respiration is immediately used to synthesize a molecule called ATP, adenosine triphosphate, which is used to fuel all other activities in the cell. In these processes, ATP is broken down, giving rise to a fixed amount of energy which can drive the endothermic reactions taking place in the cell. Refer to the table about ATP. ATP is energy currency in energy currency for most cellular processes. The energy released during the process of respiration is used to make an ATP molecule from ADP and inorganic phosphate. ADP plus phosphate plus energy gives ADP phosphate, that is ATP. P is phosphate. Endothermic processes in the cell then use this ATP to drive the reactions. When the terminal phosphate linkage in ATP is broken using water, the energy equivalent to 30.5 kilojoule per mole is released. Think of how a battery can provide energy for many different kinds of uses. It can be used to obtain mechanical energy, light energy, electrical energy, and so on. Similarly, ATP can be used in the cells of our body for the contraction of muscles, protein synthesis, conduction of nerve impulses, and many other activities. Since the aerobic respiration pathway depends on oxygen, aerobic organisms need to ensure that there is sufficient intake of oxygen. We have seen that plants exchange gases through stomata, and the large intercellular spaces ensure that all cells are in contact with air. Carbon dioxide and oxygen are exchanged by diffusion here. They can go into cells are away from them and out into the air. The direction of diffusion depends upon the environmental conditions and the requirements of the plant. At night, when there is no photosynthesis occurring, carbon dioxide elimination is the major exchange activity going on. During the day, carbon dioxide generated during respiration is used up for photosynthesis, hence, there is no carbon dioxide release. Instead, oxygen release is the major event at this time. Animals have evolved different organs for the uptake of oxygen from the environment and for getting rid of carbon dioxide produced. Terrestrial animals can breathe the oxygen in the atmosphere, but animals that live in water need to use oxygen dissolved in water. Refer to activity 5.6. Since the amount of dissolved oxygen is fairly low compared to the amount of oxygen in the air, the rate of breathing in aquatic organisms is much faster than that seen in terrestrial organisms. Fishes take in water through their mouths and force it past the gills, where the dissolved oxygen is taken up by blood. Terrestrial organisms use the oxygen in the atmosphere for respiration. This oxygen is absorbed by different organs in different animals. All these organs have a structure that increases the surface area which is in contact with the oxygen rich atmosphere. Since the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide has to take place across this surface is very fine and delicate. In order to protect this surface, it is usually placed within the body so that there have to be passages that will take air to this area. In addition, there is a mechanism for moving the air in and out of this area where the oxygen is absorbed. In human beings, referred to Fig 5.9, air is taken into the body through the nostrils. The air passing through the nostrils is filtered by fine hairs that line the passage. The passage is also lined with mucus, which helps in this process. From here, the air passes through the throat and into the lungs. Rings of cartilage are present in the throat. These ensure that air passage does not collapse. This is the human respiratory system shown in figure 5.9. It starts with nostrils, goes into nasal passage, then there is pharynx, larynx, trachea. Trachea has rings of cartilage. Then trachea breaks down into primary bronchi, singular is bronchus. These primary bronchi, one of each goes to one lung. There's right bronchus and left bronchus. Then these form many small ducts called bronchioles, and these bronchioles enter into alveolar sacs. Alveolar sacs have little grape-like sacs and bags. These are called alveoli. Within the lungs, the passage divides into smaller and smaller tubes, which finally terminate in balloon-like structures, which are called alveoli, singular alveolus. The alveoli provide a surface where the exchange of gases takes place. The walls of alveoli contain an extensive network of blood vessels. As we have seen in earlier years, when we breathe in, we lift our ribs and flatten our diaphragm, and the chest cavity becomes larger as a result. Because of this, air is sucked into lungs and fills the expanded alveoli. The blood brings carbon dioxide from the rest of the body for release into the alveoli, and the oxygen in the alveolar air is taken up by blood in the alveolar blood vessels to be transported to all the cells in the body. During the breathing season, during the breathing cycle, when air is taken, when air is taken in and let out, the lungs always contain a residual volume of air so that there is sufficient time for oxygen to be absorbed and for the carbon dioxide to be released. When the body size of animal is large, the diffusion pressure alone cannot take care of oxygen delivery to all parts of the body. Instead, respiratory pigments like hemoglobin take up oxygen from the air in the lungs and carry it to tissues which are deficient in oxygen before releasing it. In human beings, the respiratory pigment is hemoglobin, which has a very high affinity for oxygen. The pigment Hemoglobin is present in red blood corpuscles. Carbon dioxide is more soluble in water than oxygen is and hence is mostly transported in the dissolved form in our blood.